Ed Gavagan. Come on.
You know, you wake up in the morning, you get dressed, you put on your shoes, you head out into the world, you feel like you're going to come back home at night, go to sleep, get up, you do it again. That rhythm creates the framework that you use to create a life, and you make plans, and you kind of count on continuity. And John Lennon said, life is what happens to you while you're making other plans. And I woke up one morning, I wasn't wearing any of my own clothes. I had 2 chest tubes. I had a hose going up my nose down to drain my stomach. I had a catheter, a morphine drip. And I woke into this fog of pain. It felt like I had broken through the ice into a lake of frozen hurt. And at the end of my bed, I could see the surgeon who had spent all night saving my life. And he was holding my foot. And he had given me about a 2% chance of living. Next to him were 2 homicide detectives. Now, they were homicide detectives because they had gotten the case because they didn't think I was going to make it, and they didn't want to have to do the paperwork swap. And let me tell you, when you start your day with 2 homicide detectives explaining what happened the night before, it's downhill from there. They had, they began to explain to me they had 5 young men in custody, and they wanted me to identify them from the mugshots before I died. And I didn't know this, but they just wanted me to make an X and next to the pictures. And what had happened is that these young men had come in from Brooklyn. They were part of a gang, and the initiation for them to move up into the upper echelons of their gang was to come into Manhattan and kill somebody. And they had set up this little ambush where they had one lookout at either end of the block. And the 3 guys would sit on the stoop, and they had their knives open up their sleeve like that, and they'll look out at either end, and they would wait. And it was late at night, and it was the night before Thanksgiving, so the city was really empty. And this guy walks around the corner, and he heads down the block, and the 2 lookouts give the go-ahead, and the 3 guys stand up and start walking towards him, and he has his key out, and he puts his key in the door, and he goes into the lobby, and the door closes behind him, and they're locked out, and he pushes the elevator button, and he goes upstairs, and he gets undressed, and he goes to bed, and he never knows what just didn't hit him. And I'm the next guy. And I come down the block, and one of the very lucky things from that night is when I was in University of Notre Dame, I was on the boxing team. So I got one good punch and knocked the middle guy out, and they caught him, and he gave up everybody else, which is how they had these 5 guys in custody. So they, nobody expected me to make it, and I did. I lived. They took me off life support, moved me into ICU, and the nurse comes in with the clipboard, and she wants to talk to me about my insurance. I was self-employed at the time, so I like to say I was insurance-free. And when she found that out, the next morning, the person that I saw said, "It's amazing how well you're doing, and we just think you ought to go home." And they gave me a bottle of Percocet and a cane and a bag to put my stuff in, and the flowers hadn't even stopped, wilted yet, you know. So I end up in my apartment at home in very bad shape. The nightmares were unbelievable. I couldn't eat. They had removed about 1/3 of my intestines. I had 2 collapsed lungs. I was missing organs that I didn't know that I had, and things were very, very difficult. And in New York, if you can't go to work and make money and pay your rent, you don't get to stay in your apartment. And it was, I would try and walk down the street to do my job. I had a little business building custom furniture. And whenever I saw a young man that had any hint of menace, this feeling would hit me. And the feeling was, you know, if you're driving late at night in the winter on a snowy road, and you're going a little fast, and you come into a turn, and you feel all four wheels slip, and you feel the car start to go, and you see the guardrail, and you know there's nothing you can do. And then all of a sudden, you hit the dry pavement, and the wheels grip, and you're back in control, and nothing happened. And then you get hit with this adrenaline feeling in the back of your knees and your palms, and you taste in your mouth. But you're driving, and you're like, nothing happened. And I would have that feeling seeing teenage kids on the street 6, 7, 8 times a day if I tried to ride the subway, and it wore me out. I was having, in the end, what was post-traumatic stress symptoms, and I ended up losing my apartment and essentially then becoming homeless. I lost my business, and I went to the district attorney's office for an appointment where I had 5 attempted murder trials that I had to handle. And I broke down. I was crying. I was like, I can't believe, you know, I was so lucky to be alive, but now I'm homeless. And he gave me a number for the a little late, I thought, for the victims assistance people, and but it was because I didn't talk. Like, I just kept it all in. And so I go and I talk to I would sit there, and I don't have an appointment or anything. I'm waiting, and this girl comes out, and she's like Reese Witherspoon and Legally Blonde. She's got the turtleneck and the ponytail, and she leads me back to her cubicle, and I'm in this really dark place, and I have this feeling that we're not going to connect. And I get to her cubicle, and pinned up on the wall next to her monitor is that poster, I know you know it, of the kitten with the branch saying, "Hang in there, baby." And I just don't feel like she's going to help me. And she gives me this paperwork to fill out for Medicaid, and she gives me some more paperwork on how to get on a list for subsidized housing. It's an 18-month wait, but, you know, at least you're on the list. And another sheet with some addresses in the Bronx where I can go for group counseling that's free. And I feel like a drowning man who's just been thrown a kit to build a boat. And I walk out of there, and I go to my favorite bartender, who's this cute Lebanese Canadian girl who's a poet, and she lets me move in and stay on the couch. She's rocking the Simone de Beauvoir look, and she's got this whole, like, she's smart and funny. And the thing from those days that she listened, which was amazing, because what people did, and they were all very well-meaning, but they had one of 3 responses. And the first response was, when I tried to talk about my feelings and my fear and this turmoil in my head, they would say, well, everything happens for a reason. And that made me want to punch him in the face and ask him if they knew what the reason for that was. And then the second thing that people tended to say was, you've just got to get over it, man. You're alive, you're lucky, you've just got to put this in the past and just move on and gather yourself together. And that made me want to stab them 6 times and come back and talk to them in 6 months and go, so how's it working out? You got any advice for me now? Because I could really use some help from somebody that knows what I'm going through. And the third thing that people would say, and again, they were very well-meaning, it just was absolutely no help, was that whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And the problem with that was that I felt like I had come to New York. I'd started this little business. I had built a life, and I had lost everything. I'd lost my apartment, my business. I got no help. This girl that let me move in with her was like getting a little worried because I was just so sad all the time. And that I felt like you could actually, I read Nietzsche, I went to college, I was up all night in the student union drinking coffee going, yeah, if it doesn't kill you, man, it makes you stronger. But I felt like I was actually broken, that things could happen in your life that would just break a man, and that you not only you wouldn't be stronger, but you would never have ever again what you had before. And I felt like things had slipped in a way that I would never be able to recover. And what I would do to try and make money and have a job is I would gather my little set of chisels and tools and go up to the Upper East Side, Manhattan, where there's always, some billionaires working on his mansion, and I could see a construction site, and I'd go up and knock on the door and ask if they needed anybody to work, just a day laborer. And the foreman, he sees a guy with his own tools, he knows his way around the job site, English is his first language, and they'd put me on they'd be like, all right, put him down there and see what he can do, and I go and I start working, and I knew what I was doing, and I'd be in this incredible mansion being renovated, and I'd look around at the unbelievable materials, and I'd think of how lucky these people were to be living, when we were done with this work. They'd be surrounded by beautiful materials and amazing craftsmanship, and I'd be there, working, and I'd be making a mortise for an offset pivot hinge in a rosewood door, and the beauty of everything that I was working on contrasted with my life, I would just start to cry. And so I'd be on my hands and knees sobbing in the library under construction, and one of the laborers would go tell the foreman, like, that dude you hired, man, he's sobbing in the librry. And the foreman, usually this Irish guy would come and, Eddie, here, I'm going to pay you for the day. Go have a drink, man. We don't need you anymore. And then that would be it. I'd get fired, and I was getting fired again and again. And it was always, these people didn't know what happened to me. They just knew they couldn't have some guy weeping in the basement, and I couldn't hold a job, and I was getting angrier, and now she's my girlfriend, the Canadian poet bartender, but she's worried because I'm like, my attitude is not so good, and I leave after being fired yet again. I walk out onto Park Avenue, right? And I've got my little bag of tools, and I see this guy walking by, and he's got his hair is perfectly coiffed, and his Hermes tie is knotted, and his shoes are shine, his impeccable suit with his shiny briefcase. And I see that guy, and I just want to tackle him and just kneel on his chest and punch him in the face and go, you're not good. You're just lucky, man. You're not, you think that all of your assumptions and everything and all you're doing is keeping you where you are. You're just lucky, because it can all just be gone. You can lose it. And I have this rage at him. I don't do anything, let him keep walking. But I realize as I have that feeling that I have just wanted to hurt an innocent stranger, passerby, to make a point about what is wrong with my life. And in that moment, I realized I've become more like the kids that stabbed me. I've lost who I was before. And I go, it's an incredible feeling to feel like you're not who you used to be. And that the feeling was that I was slipping down into some place where I was going down a road where I was going to meet the guys who were my attackers, and I was going to be in hell because I would go there alone. Like, no, that path was just of bitterness, and there was no way out. And at the same time, for the first time, as I was sitting there thinking about these feelings of what was happening to me, I realized I can never get back to where I was. That guy, that business, that whole life is just gone. I lost it. But I had never believed that I'd lost it. I always thought I was trying to get back to be that guy. And as I sat there and I thought about, I realized I got to do something new. And there was this, it felt liberating. It was like, all right, I can't go back because that's gone. And I don't want to be evil and bad. And I'm going to do this new thing. And I'm like, I can do it. I can do it. I have this girl, and I run home, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be the sad guy, and I'm not going to be the mad guy. I'm gonna change, and we're gonna work this out. Will you marry me? And she's like, no. You're like, you got to do, you need a little more work here. But she's enthused by my enthusiasm, and she knows I'm never going to ask her again. So after about another year and a half, she feels like we got something. And so she asks me to marry her. And so we do. And we end up building this routine again and setting up a life. And now I have a 2-year-old daughter. And I put her shoes on in the morning, and I head out to work.